All right. I think I am live. Let me turn this down. Otherwise, you guys will be getting me on the sound on the delay. Let's see. Hi, Leia's in here. Mo Cowbell. So, so here, hi, Leia, you're at the beginning. And so I'm going to kick this off with like the world's worst Christopher Walken impression. So only those that were here at the beginning get to hear this or rewatch it. But here we go. All right. I got a fever, and the only cure is more comics. There you go. That's it. That's the Christopher Walken impression. So, hey Perry, what's going on, man? So, hey John. So, I don't know. You guys might have been too late. You might have missed the impression. Maybe not. So, but you know, my one and only attempt at Christopher Walken. So if you missed it, you have to rewatch it. You made it just in time. There you go. So as always, if anybody wants to join in, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or whatever, and I will send you the link. But tonight I'm going to be talking about the fever a little bit, and this had been on my list to do for this Collecting Smart series, and I almost didn't do it because The Boy Who Had Seven and Sasquatch did their amateur hour last Tuesday and did such a good job of talking about, you know, the mistakes that we make when we have the fever and chasing books and that kind of stuff. I was almost like, well, this is really necessary. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know, still kind of want to give my perspective on it, talk about some stuff that came into the chat that maybe they didn't necessarily address, and just kind of give my feelings about it. Because I feel like it's not just an amateur hour thing. You know, I think it's easier for new collectors to fall into that trap that I gotta have it, the mistaking want for need, as I like to think about it, and opposed to, you know, people that are veterans, but I think veterans still fall into that a little bit. So we're going to see who all is in the chat. Looks like, hi, Leia, as I said before, Perry, John, Gray Man, buy more comics. So yeah, as Gray Man says, I'm not going to buy any more comics. I'm not going to do it, and then buy more comics. And as I got back in, like last year, I really like fell into the trap of, as someone who'd been out of collecting for a long time, and kind of like The Boy Who Had Seven talked about, is I wanted everything and I wanted it now. And it was, and it quickly, thankfully, probably in my case, is being somebody on a tight budget, the budget quickly shut that down. There was no, like, I quickly came to the realization that, no, that wasn't good work. And thanks too much of my redundancy. Yeah. So it's, you know, I quickly, because of my budget, helped me come to the realization maybe faster than some people that maybe have a little more wiggle room than I did, that I need to like check myself. But I still, like, every time I go on eBay to look for something, or just like I find something, I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I want that. And like, no, you don't. No, you don't need it. Mine. Yeah. So I just want to talk a little bit about what I think drives that in all of us. And just kind of my own thing. So like I said, before, if anybody wants to hop in, feel free to hit me up. But so I think the biggest two driving factors to me are just the nature of being a collector that makes us fall victims to the fever, as they were calling it the other night. Is, you know, as a collector, you want stuff, you want thing, and you want not just one thing, you want like lots of stuff, you want all of it. And it's, to a certain degree, collecting is an addiction. It's like any other addiction. Hey, Rican. You know, to a certain degree, we're all like we're all addicts when it comes to comic books, and it's a matter of managing, what is realistic within our collecting fever. And then the other aspect I think that really drives us when we get ahead of ourselves and get to doing things that we probably shouldn't is that fear of missing out. And that kind of goes back to this being a collector, but I think it also comes back to, is you don't want to be the guy who didn't get that book. And I feel like I use the Hulk books for my thumbnail, I was late putting up an actual thumbnail. But I use those because I feel like there's a lot of that driving the prices on the Hulk books right now. I'm going to check the chat. I've seen just people saying hello to Rod. You know, is Incredible Hulk #2, the first appearance of Dr. Fry, and I real and they may do a lot with that character, but is that really an $80 book? I realize it's not a super big print run, but I feel like the fear of missing out on this great run that's coming out right now, it's a great story. It's, people love it. It's driving it, but it's $20 for all of these first prints of all these, 3, 4, 5, 6, all these Alex Ross covers. Is that real? Or is it being driven by people's fear of missing out? Like, oh, I don't want to be the one who didn't get Immortal Hulk. I don't want to be the one who missed out on this. And so I think that, we all still fall victim to the hype on things, that fear of, oh my gosh, I don't want to be the only one who's not in on Immortal Hulk. And it's something that, we fight even when we know better. There's no reason to spend $80 on a #2 right now. I just don't see it. So I'm going to check the chat. There's no trade available yet. So he's about 11 through 14. They might do more with them, but who knows? And let's see. Not the value of Immortal Hulk. Right. And so to me, with Immortal Hulk, that's you're absolutely right. NYC is that it's, it should be about the fear, wanting to catch up on this great story that you've been missing. So grabbing the trades or being able to catch up that way. But that's not what's driving people. Is they want that number. They want those Ross covers. They want #2, even though it's $80. And maybe Dr. Fry becomes a big deal, and maybe he doesn't. But I think there's a little bit of that. And I was just kind of using that as an example. I don't want to make this a discussion on whether Immortal Hulk is, worth every penny. But I think that some of what's driving those prices on that new story is just that fear of, I'm going to miss out on this. I got to have this, as opposed to people being like, well, this is really good, but I can still read it other ways, even though I was late to the party. And I'm going to be patient and I could be completely wrong, but I would bet a year from now, #2 is not an $80 book. Now it might be. I could be. Maybe I'm the one who's clueless on this particular one. Yeah, I just don't. I don't think it's going to drive. I think that's one that's going to be patient. Being patient. Now does what is it? 684. The first Immortal Hulk appearance. Now that's a book I see that's not even as expensive as #2. But that's a book I see maybe potentially having more long-term value if the story continues to be really good, whether they use Dr. Fry or not. So there's a little bit of a, just a dichotomy there. But just getting back into my thing, but I think it's really easy when there's hype around the story or there's hype around an artist for that, that desire to get the better of us sometimes and get the better of our judgment. I mean, there are books that are, you can buy a lot. There's a lot of cool books that you can buy for $80. Immortal Hulk is a cool book, but is it really an $80 book? And I think so. I didn't necessarily. I kind of went down a tangent here with Immortal Hulk from my original plan, but I'm going to check the chat here to see what you guys are saying. Just Regan, apparently. I can't spend that much on new books. Wife said, "Get to bed." Night, Rod. Later, Rod. I don't know how long ago that was. I might already missed you. Um, yeah. So NYC saying you'd rather buy, a low grade bronze or silver age book for $80, and that's, I think that's probably ultimately maybe a better investment. But the so for me, one of those things that I have found is like I find a book and it's like, oh, I start going down this road of like, I'll see a book and I'll decide I want it, or I'll be like, oh, I'd like to do that. I start looking at prices and that kind of stuff. And then I think to myself, why? I always try to stop myself and go, why do I want this? How does it fit with my collection? How does it fit with the characters and my interests um, going forward? Like I've ran into this a little bit of as I've been getting ready for trying to decide what I was going to do for PlanetCon, because I don't have like any Claremont books, or Jim Starlin's going to be there, and I don't really have any of his stuff, and trying to like, ooh, I want this, and I could get this, and I could get this to get signed, but I'm like, but those books don't necessarily mean anything to me. They're not stories that I've necessarily read. For some of these artists, even though they're legends, I haven't really read those stories. Those books don't necessarily have any meaning to me. So why am I chasing something that's not important to me, as opposed to chasing like my 2019 want list, or maybe going and spending that money instead on maybe getting a sketch cover by an artist that I like have an interest in, or just other things that might be smarter choices, instead of having the fever of, I got to get a cool X-Men book to get Chris Claremont to sign, when I don't have those, somewhat for a reason, because I was never really into X-Men at that time. Even though I know they're really good stories. And so just trying to like fight that urge to chase something that doesn't really have value to me in the long term. Like I could chase a book and then get Chris Claremont to sign it, but does that really? Well, that's cool because he's important, and I understand those stories are important, but it doesn't actually have value to me. And I think that's where the fear of missing out is. You got to understand, you're not missing out on something that doesn't actually have value to you, that you don't actually care about necessarily. So I'm going to check the chat again to see what's going on. Price range. Yeah, I think you guys are talking about a little bit of some books, other books that are out there that maybe you could go after. Better buy long term too. Yeah. People need to focus on what speaks to them. Yeah. And so I think that's a little bit of where, the fever comes in, is that, we get confused with something you want, or kind of want maybe, and in the moment, and not taking the time to say, well, do I really want this? Or is it just because it's the hot new thing? And, is it really something that fits with what I'm trying to do with my collection, what I'm trying to do with my budget? And just taking that step back, that patience. And it's one of the things that I've kind of like tried to force myself to do, is a lot of times if I see a book, like, and I see it for a good price or something on eBay or on Instagram or wherever, is I make myself wait. I make myself sleep on it. And sometimes that means I miss out. But you know what? Most of those books, I don't collect golden age stuff. I'm not collecting really rare stuff. So in general, there's going to be other opportunities. Maybe it costs me a couple bucks more later, but more likely it won't. More likely I'll be able to find something fairly similar. So that's just kind of one of my steps I take to try to like fight the fever is, I try to take that extra little bit of time and force myself to be like, I'm going to sleep on this. And sometimes I may have to make myself sleep on it for like 2 days, because I feel like I'm going down a road that I know that I shouldn't. So let's see here. Who all is still down there? Unruly came in at some point. Thanks for joining us. And because I missed that. Gray Man. highlight. So everybody else has been here for a while. Um, the Black Monday murders. I don't know what that's necessarily about. Must be something going on in the chat. I'm big here. And this was the first appearance of Necronomicon in DC and Marvel Comics. Okay. Cool. Hey, babe. So, so that's just kind of my philosophy on trying to deal with that stuff, and really trying to always lead myself back to what is it that is this a character that like has meaning to me? Is this a book that has meaning to me? Why am I chasing this book? I mean, if it's a really cool cover, if it's a cool artist, is it something that like speaks to me on a level other than it's the thing that people are chasing at the moment? I fell into that trap a little bit. I chased some books last summer. They, for the most part, weren't very expensive, thankfully, because I didn't have a very deep budget. Like I said, I kind of got helped with dealing with the fever just because my budget doesn't allow me to do too many crazy things. But so that was always helpful. But the other thing that I think is I really like is a warning sign to me is when I start trying to figure out how to afford something. Like if I don't have the money to like go get it, but yet I'm trying to figure out a way to like make that work. Well, I could do this and I can make that work. That usually tells me that I'm going down a path that like as soon as I start having those thoughts, I'm like, okay, I need to back up. I need to think about this in a different perspective. Is this something I really want? Is this something I really need to go after at this moment? Do I need to wait? So those are just kind of my thoughts. I didn't necessarily think this was going to be super long live stream. Let's see. Comic Books NYC spent 7 hours at Big Apple Con on Saturday and only bought one book. I put so many books back. I'm combating the fever as best I can. And sometimes it's, you just have to be willing to, like I said, you have to be willing to walk away. You have to be willing to think, is this the right thing at this time? True Tales comic that I'm at after a couple more of Hickman writes that. I think I missed something there where the highlight is talking about if you ever when I'm in a con or in a comic shop. I do too. We all do. I mean, there's always something that seems like I see and I'm like, ooh, that wasn't necessarily on my targets or want list when I go in. And doesn't mean you can't do that occasionally. I don't think that like fighting the fever, it's just that you need to like just try to be smart about it and not, you can't overdo it. You have to be like within your range of, and again, don't buy anything without doing a little research. If you see something that you don't know that you want, but you haven't really been looking to see how much it's worth, then take the time to go on eBay like they talked about the other night. Look at the most recent sold listings. Get an idea of what the value is and whether or not it's really a good deal before you chase something that you maybe weren't necessarily looking for, but you stumble across and you're like, oh, I wonder if that's a good price. Just take those extra few moments, few steps to slow yourself down. And I think that does a big help in fighting the fever. Let's see. Thomas Churchill. Hey, Thomas. Thanks for joining us. I'm almost done with kind of my my stuff here. Unless somebody else wants to jump in and share a story or talk a little bit about it. Otherwise, I'm gonna like wrap this up here pretty quick. So those are just kind of my thoughts on dealing with the fever and dealing with, that fear of missing out and that confusing of wanting something with I need this now, I need it right now, when generally it's a comic book. You don't need it right now. There's no, and if that's one of the things I think about is like a lot of people chase like the hot cover, like a cover comes out and it gets hot like the week after it came out and like, oh, I missed out on that cover. Well, I have a pull list and over the time I've been starting to think about it. If I didn't put it on my pull list to start with, I probably didn't really want it. So did I really miss out on anything? It's not like I'm going to try to flip it or turn it. If it's something that I've seen, and now if maybe I didn't see it, then maybe I missed out a little bit. But realistically, it wasn't something that I was already going after. So those are just kind of my thoughts on this kind of thing. Hey, JB. So Discovery Bay's in the house and Ruli. So yeah, we got a pretty good chat in here. So that's great. I'm glad you guys joined me. So the last thing I was really going to do, and you guys might get a second shot at the walk-in impression that I did at the beginning for those of you who joined later. But before I do that, is going to make a little bit of an announcement. I don't know if Collecting Smart is going on hiatus, but this time slot is going on hiatus for that. I may do like recordings, or I may try to drop it in otherwise. But I have decided that and I'm late. I didn't realize how close it's actually getting. Going to start rewatching Game of Thrones. Probably as soon as I get off of here, because I haven't started at all yet. So next Monday, I am going to do my thoughts on season 1 of Game of Thrones. And then every Monday, I'm going to do like 1 to 2 seasons, because I only got 5 weeks from yesterday is when the premiere comes out. So right now what I'm thinking is I'm going to do my thoughts on Game of Thrones season 1 next week, although I'm going to try to be past that by the time I do this live on next Monday night. And then 2 weeks from now will be like seasons 2 and 3. In 3 weeks we'll do like season 4, and then like 5 and 6. And then the night after the premiere, I'm going to try to do like season 7 and the premiere and just give my thoughts. I love Game of Thrones. I haven't actually rewatched from the beginning ever. Like I've watched it all, and I've rewatched like specific episodes, but I've never rewatched from the beginning. So I'm going to do that before season 8. So they have great recaps on YouTube. You don't have to waste all that time. But I want to waste all that time, Bake. So again, and so it might not be for everybody. If nobody wants to join me for that, it might just be me talking to myself on here. But if anybody would like to jump in and like that's a big Game of Thrones fan, if they are, then they can like more than welcome. Hit me up in the next couple of days on Instagram, and we'll do, or even the night of, and we'll pop you on here and you can give your thoughts on if you're doing a rewatch before it starts, or even if you're just wanting a reminder, or if you're just going to watch the recaps, and you can come on and talk to me about it too. But so, yeah, I'm going to waste all that time because I really enjoyed that show. And I wanted to do a rewatch. And so I'm going to like plow through this. I don't know. It may like nosedive my subscribers and I get no watches, but we'll see. Watch Martin's commentary on the episodes he directs. Worth a listen. I will try to do that. I have never watched any of his commentary stuff, so I'm definitely going to do that. Yeah, so I'm just going to like basically give. So my plan is I'm going to try to get season 1 watched before next Monday, and actually probably a little beyond that, just so I can, because I'm trying to catch up because I'm so late starting. And then I'm just going to get my thoughts on season 1 and like the different episodes and the moments, and trying to remember a little bit of what I thought the first time versus what I think now, having rewatched it and knowing where it goes. And then just kind of work through as the lead up. And like I said, if everybody's like wants to come join me and talk nerdy stuff about Game of Thrones, then great. And if not, we'll make it work anyway. So, well, I am just rewatching for myself, but I'm also gonna like because I want to, but I'm also gonna do a recap on here. So I'm gonna do that on Monday nights. And if like I said, if somebody wants to be like co-host or my cohort on these, or even one of them, let me know and we'll make something work. So that's my plans for the next couple of weeks anyway. So I think I'll probably do some Collecting Smart sometime in here, but it may be go back to being like pre-recorded videos that I drop or something like that. Am I missing anything? Okay, it's a great book. I have read all the books, although I didn't read. Actually, only recently read like the 5th book. It took me for a long time. I never really picked up the 5th book for the longest time for whatever reasons. It was just late. I didn't start watching the show till season 5 was coming out. I started watching just before season 5 launched. And at that point, I had already read the first 3 books. And then So I've kind of like, I'd read the books and then I watched the show and got ahead of the books. And then I kind of went back and read the last two books. So I've kind of done it in a weird way, but that's just how I've come to the show. But I do really enjoy the show. Yeah. So, and I'm definitely going to, so like my plan is to probably keep that going Monday nights after the new episodes come out. So probably like for season one, I probably won't get to like season 7 until after the premiere happens. So probably that first night after the premiere, we'll do like season 7 and the premiere, and then after that, we'll just do each episode on a Monday. The Monday after is what I'm thinking. So, like I said, if people want to join in, great. Just hit me up on Instagram, and we'll get you lined out for a week or multiple weeks if you want to, or whatever. And does anyone die in Game of Thrones? I don't. I don't want to give you spoilers, Hialeah, but I think that's a possibility. If you're not into death, it might not be the show for you. So so that's so with that, unless anybody's got anything else they want to talk about related to the fever or anything like that, I will get off of here. And since all you guys stayed with me for 30 minutes, I will give those of you who weren't here in the first 2 minutes a recap of the world's worst Christopher Walken impression. So I did that to start the show. I'm going to end the show that way. And here we go. Let's see if I got a fever, and the only cure is more comic books. So there you go. there's your Christopher Walken thing. And so that's starting in the show with that. And then yes, Hialeah, there are dragons. They take a little while to show up, but there are dragons. So nudity, maybe just a little bit of nudity. In Game of Thrones. There are dwarves. Yes, that's personally my favorite character in the whole probably books and the TV show. Tyrion is probably my favorite. Like, there is some difference between the characters I like in the books versus the TV show. Like, some of the performances I don't think live up to the books, where some of them I think are better than the books. And that he is the one performance that I love. I love Tyrion in the books, and I love Peter Dinklage on the show. I think that is he carries that from the page to the screen better than just about anybody in the show. So big fan of him. So, all right, gang. Well, I'm sure there's other stuff going on tonight. So I'm going to go on and drop off here, not try to say goodbye 3,700 times. So thanks for joining me, and we will see you next time.